Wolf's Den with Lone Wolf Poetics. Sit back and enjoy the unique perspective that is expressed through poetry, poems, prose, and short stories.
Alright, hello and welcome back inside the Wolf's Den. My name is Lone Wolf Poetics. So like I said last week, on this week's broadcast, I want to kind of explore some of my pieces that kind of deal with the theme of technology being poison. So with that said, I have actually just 3 pieces for you guys tonight. But there's lots of kind of talking, so we're probably looking at around 45 minutes or so. But before I get into my first piece of the night, I have another quote for you guys. This one comes from Albert Einstein, who said, and I quote, "I fear the day that technology will suppress..." So this quote comes from Albert Einstein, who said, and I quote, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." End quote. So with that said, this first piece I'm going to do for you guys tonight is entitled Rain's Rain, and it goes like this. "Come take a trip with me, it'll be fun, you'll see, to a place not too far away. Well, okay, it's just outside your front door, but before you go, you should probably know, this place we're about to explore is full of hidden horror. Yes, I must forewarn, you may experience burn and scorn. If you are feeling bold, then my friend, cross the threshold into a place dark and cold, no holds barred, where kindness will leave you marred and love has been scarred. This is a place where the rains rain, and the strings of your heart strained hold on to hope infected by pain. If you wish to escape, simply yourself away you must scrape. I lie, my apologies, I did tell, just as simply as a coin down a wishing well. But how else this trip was I to sell? Outside into where the rains rain we hath not fell. The truth now out, but this land... The truth now out, but this land, in darkness it does still stand, crushing like an anaconda's band, breath restricted by that in your hand. An intelligent electronic device, oh, so grand. Welcome, my friends, to the robotic reality. Welcome, my friends, to the robotic reality. Please take part in our growing insanity. Surrender your upbeat and happy personality. By signing on, you waive your individuality for a virtual and fragile mentality, meant only to destroy and manipulate. Time has expired to lodge a complaint. Sit idly by while computers congregate to discuss and decide your fate, all because you chose to live way too late. The world around you destroyed in secrecy. Pay no mind to the blatant hypocrisy of my apology for being too racy. I promise it is simply a bias of recency. Just continue your unbidden piracy. No, you do not have a shred of agency while practicing your complacency. There is no truth in your joyful conspiracy, no merit in your high-spun infrequency. This a lesson in self-preservation. Unlearned. An addict you are, imprisoned and dependent, while your mental health climbs in descendant. While your mental health climbs in descendant, like a hanging necklace's golden pennant. Are these chains we live in not resplendent? Take not the stance of a defendant, while you prize your illusions like a hospital attendant. Fight only as a germ fights disinfectant. Your anger and attitude is merely resentment for the life you let pass in basement. Yes, the weather ahead is sure to be inclement. So welcome, my friends, to the robotic insanity in the land where the rains rain. Okay, so that was my piece entitled Rain's Rain. So with this piece, I wanted to challenge myself to write a piece where the title was like a play on words, and then actually take it one step farther. And once I had that kind of that play on words, to actually base the whole entire piece around that play on words. So how did I come up with the idea to do like rain's rain? So I was kind of thinking, so I kind of started thinking, okay, well, what words could I use that are like a play on words kind of thing? So I was kind of thinking like two words that are pronounced the same but have very different meanings kind of thing. So I kind of started throwing around words and eventually came up with rain. I was like, well, there's a bunch of different types of rain, so what about like rain that like falls from the sky and like reigning champion, so like the reigns are champion kind of thing. I was like, okay, well that kind of works. And then so that's kind of how I came up with the title. But to me sorry, just looking at my notes here. Okay, so to me, the title itself is actually a metaphor for not just technology, like in a broad stroke, but I think more specifically as a metaphor for, I guess, so be like a metaphor for the just how connected we are in this day and age, and how instantly connected we are. I think that's going to kind of be a theme with this first piece and actually the last piece. But with rain's rain, I think it's interesting how, like, especially if you look at like smartphones and cell phones and that, kind of our whole lives are really based around always having this thing in our hand. So I think, so I kind of think maybe that's what the first, like, the rain is, like, that's the rain's rain, is the phones are the reigning champions of things we can't get rid of them kind of thing. So when I actually sat down to write about this piece, I knew I didn't want to write about COVID. I would eventually. So I do have a couple pieces that kind of deal with COVID, but I didn't want to. I wrote this one. So I wrote this one in, I think, February. So the end of February of this, I guess last year. So I knew I didn't want to write about COVID then. I was really trying to avoid it and purposely not write about it. So I kind of started thinking, so that's kind of why I decided to go with like technology instead of that. Because when I first started to write it, I didn't really know what else to write about. And I was like, oh, I don't want to write about that. But so I started like thinking about technology and that. So the idea of having the two distinct voices, and I say voices and not characters, because to me, even though you have these two distinct voices, right, you have this very kind of, I always picture it as like a salesperson, kind of like maybe a used car salesperson. It was kind of like that. So it was like, this car has a couple dings, it's been an accident, but don't worry about that. It's a great car, great price, everything like that. So just that kind of two-handed, overzealous selling approach as being the first voice. And then you have this very, how I always picture, this very robotic, very, if you've ever watched like a sci-fi movie and the heroes go into this, into the warehouse or into the, into the warehouse thing kind of scenario, you always hear like that very monotonous, very robotic voice giving either instructions or updates or anything like that, orders. But it's always just that very robotic, very fake kind of, but very, very fake, but very authoritative type of voice. And I think that's what I was trying to go for with the second voice. But to me, both this car salesman type voice and this robotic kind of sci-fi PA system voice are actually the same person. Kind of two sides of the stone kind of thing. Yes, okay, so that was actually, so the idea to do that was actually inspired by a poem I did last week, entitled No Power, No Fear. So, unlike No Power, No Fear, which is, like I said, a two-way poem, actually Rain's Rain, even though it was inspired by, kind of based off of No Power, No Fear, is not a two-way poem. And the reason for that is, even though you have these two very different kind of points of view, for it to be a two-way poem, you would have to go back and reread the first part, and obviously it's just two different sides in Rain's Rain. But I still like that that kind of dynamic of having the two different voices, the two different kind of textures, I guess, of in this prose piece. And I would say, so talking about this as a prose, I would say it's actually pretty close to how I typically write my prose. This one has a little bit more poeticness, a little bit more poetic device in it, just a little bit of rhyming and a little bit some wordplay throughout. And I think that just kind of helps with the flow and the cadence of this piece. And it kind of helps to bring those two voices together that I was talking about. But yeah, so overall, but overall, this is, I would say Rain's Rain is pretty typical to how I normally write. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about that piece. So again, that was my piece entitled Rain's Rain. Okay, so before I get into my next piece here, sorry, I have another Albert Einstein quote for you guys, and this time, so this quote says, so this quote goes, and I quote, "It has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity," end quote. So with that very, very cheerful outlook, this next piece is one of my absolute favorites to actually perform and recite. So this is Il Dottore, or The Doctor, when translated from Italian into English, and it goes like this. Turn off your devices and settle in the unsettling silence. Lay back and bask in the darkness. Stare sightless into the blindness. Stay there, tethered to a trance, trapped inside the asylum of your mind. Basically, don't change a thing. Il Dottore will be in shortly, working remotely, but do not worry, I assure you, it is purely only for his safety. But how can a doctor work remotely is the question you now ask me. Well, it's quite easy, really, you see. Are you familiar with the history of Italy? Well, let us take a journey to Isola de Paveli, and voila. Let us take a journey to Isola de Paveli, and voila. Truly an experience oh so profound, beating our feet through the ground, turning round, falling down, like a tissue, like a tissue. We make bed petals in the meadows of ashes and posies, and a ring around the roses. Oops, my apologies. I must request that you Oops, my apologies. I must request that you not collect these flowers, for they wield bubonic powers that are Oops, my apologies. I must request that you not collect these flowers, for they wield bubonic powers that are sure to plague you with the throes of shock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Just a simple touch is a touch too much. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. I confess this mess takes not a doc. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Too weak to speak thrills of chills. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Spinning seconds from your clock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. That electronic locket in your pocket, give it here if you believe. Keeping it near will bleed. Your cure of that, I am not so sure. It is the reason you are here, but go ahead and live your dream. Scream and scream and scream, as evil and pointless as it may seem. Hey, look over there, a fresh looking stream. Is it a stream of water? Is it a stream of vaccine? Is it a... Hey, look over there, a fresh-looking stream. Is it a stream of water? Is it a stream of vaccine? Is it a stream of consciousness we have found? Has this all been but a dream? What seems dressed in lucid streams? Oh, that it surely does seem. Reindulge in your vices and fidget with your gadgets. Stand up and partake in the madness. When you hear a clap, awaken from your nap, and you will see El Dottore is here with me. But dare I say that line is heresy, my friend. You cannot hear or see. You are deaf and blind, a prisoner in the asylum inside your mind, wretched and unrefined, inhuman, made of bits and pieces like Frankenstein. Well, oh well, bells chime in perfect time. Do they sing with wedding praise or ring to raise warning on Monday morning's morning? The way this trip is going, I suspect the latter, but never the matter. For, like I said in the stanza prior, El Dottore is ready to begin his examination of a specimen foreign to every nation and wrought with technological addiction. But I bet you wish you would have listened to these words of mine instead of living online. Ha ha ha! But you chose to collect those flowers, the ones that wield bubonic powers. So enjoy the plaguing throes of shock. Tick tock, tick tock, tick. Your clock has stopped. Turn off your devices and settle in the unsettling silence. Lay back and bask in the darkness. Stare sightless into the blindness. Good night. Okay, so that was my piece entitled Il Dottore, or like I said, The Doctor when translated from Italian to English. Yeah, so like I said, so like I was saying, this is one of my absolute favorite pieces to actually recite and perform. Just because it's so dynamic and it's so, I just have a lot of fun with it. It's so easy to have fun with. There we go. So this is one of the very, very, very few pieces that I've written exclusively for my YouTube channel. What I mean by that is, so usually how it works is I'll write a piece, or like even looking at some of my older pieces. So I'll have a piece either written or will have just wrote it. And then, so after I have it written or whatever, so after I have it finished, then I start kind of thinking about concepts for how to shoot it for my YouTube channel, and kind of how I can do the video and costume and all that. However, like I said, with Il Dottore, it was the opposite. So I had this idea in my mind of this character that I wanted to kind of create and do a video around. And this character comes from the history of Poveglia Island, which is a small island just outside of just outside of Venice, Italy. So basically, just kind of give you a quick history of Poveglia and why I chose it. Okay, so this island is one of, I think, two or three islands, but Poveglia being the most famous. That was used as a quarantine during the bubonic plague that obviously ravaged Italy. I can't remember when that was, but yeah, a long time ago. So basically back then, because there was no vaccine, there was nowhere near like the amount of medicine we have now. You're talking hundreds, possibly hundreds of years ago. Possibly 100 years ago, a couple hundred years ago, something like that. So they just didn't have any medicine, right? So what they would do is, if you were showing signs or suspected or you did have the bubonic plague, they would ship you to one of these three islands, or possibly Poveglia, to basically die. You would stay there either until you fully recovered, which back then was not very much. It was not very likely. So yeah, you went there to die. So that kind of started the whole history of Poveglia. It's actually said that about half of the island, if I'm not mistaken, so it's roughly about half of the island is made from, not from like dirt and like what you would expect an island to be made up of, but actually it's made up of human ash, the remains of human ash, which is very, very creepy. So Poveglia Island is extremely off limits, for I think obvious and very good reasons. It's also considered one of the most haunted places in the world, And if you look at their history aside, like the history after, it was used as a quarantine island. You're looking at mental institutions, you're looking at capital punishments, you're looking at shipwrecks, you're looking at hurricanes, you're looking at possibly a maximum security prison, kind of Alcatraz, but I could be wrong on that. So basically nothing good has ever happened on this island. So getting back to the Poveglia Island and how it fits in with this story, with this character I had this idea for a character that I wanted to create for my video. So you would have, so on the boat ride, so if you were so if it was decided that you needed to go to Poveglia, they would take you on this boat ride, because again, obviously Venice has no roads. So you take this short boat ride, and on the ride you would have doctors with you. There'd be doctors taking you. So it would be kind of doctors taking you out there, but the doctors would wear this really weird, kind of creepy beaked mask. It was kind of like a half mask with a long beak coming out the nose. And so the reason for that specific mask was because they would stuff like herbs and different things like that inside the nose of this beak, as a way to protect themselves from contracting the bubonic plague. And they would, so that was, so I had found, so when I shot this video, it was like a year and a half ago now, I guess. It was around Halloween, Samhain, however you address it. But I had found actually like a Halloween mask of this doctor, like a doctor's mask from Poveglia. Or like so that style of mask anyways. And so I kind of wanted, so I had this idea to create this doctor kind of character. But I didn't have anything written for it. I just knew I had this idea. And I kind of started thinking, okay, well, what if I do like a history? I don't want to just do a poem on Poveglia Island itself. I want to make it kind of like a metaphor. I want to use it as, I want it to be kind of symbolic. So I was like, well, what about technology? What about like cell phones and the internet and all that kind of thing, social media, that kind of thing. So that idea actually came from, and this talks about the way I actually recite this piece, as well as how I move in the video. That's on my YouTube channel. So all three of those were kind of inspired. Well, not kind of. They were inspired by the song. By a hip hop song entitled Joker and Joker Returns by Nigerian Canadian American underground hip hop artist Dax, DAX. So, and it's kind of so in the song Dax kind of talks about the same thing, kind of online bullying and just how poisonous social media is on our mental states. So it's the reason I was inspired by this piece is, like I said, so not only because it's kind of dealing with the same thing, but also because for one, obviously I'm a fan of Dax. He's a great, awesome. He's a very awesome. He's a very, very talented rapper and just musician, and poet. Actually, he does spoken word poetry as well. Or at least he used to. But anyways, so he's just a very, very, his delivery, his writing style is just very catchy, very, very much, very attention grabbing. So there's that, but also the way he plays Joker. Now, I am not by any means a fan of like the superhero movies. I never have been. That being said, if Dax made a Joker movie, I would absolutely watch it, buy it, everything. He does an amazing Joker. And just so you guys can, so I will share a link to the song Joker by Dax in Discord as well as on my Facebook page after the broadcast, so you can check that out, and I highly encourage you guys to do that. Okay, yeah, so this piece, so getting back to Il Dottore, this piece was originally intended to be written as a poem, and kind of with that very simple line count, but very multiple complex rhyme schemes that I've kind of alluded to a few times. Yeah, so that was going to be, because that's kind of how I originally pictured this piece being. Obviously it was nothing of that. So I kept writing, so I tried a few different times to write this piece, Il Dottore, in that style, and it just was not working. It didn't start working until I actually got more lyrical with this, and I do think this is a very lyrical prose piece. They're definitely not like song lyrics, but it's kind of heading in that direction. Definitely more so than poetry. Yeah, so that was kind of the only way I could write this piece, was very much in that almost lyrical kind of prose style that it is today. And so that was a very different writing experience also. It was definitely a challenge to write that piece, and to write this piece, I should say, just because the different, trying to write it in the way where I could have this delivery of it, and it would actually fit, that kind of thing. So I think, one other point I want to bring up, to kind of tie Il Dottore into the last piece I did, Rain's Rain, is I think it's interesting how in the delivery is, so I think it's interesting how we have this kind of dichotomy between the delivery being like very upbeat and happy and kind of sarcastic, whereas the message and the words and like what I'm actually saying is very, very dark. I think, so this is a technique that I did very consciously, and like very much so with intent, but it's a technique that if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't work. So I was really kind of really careful with that, and I think that's one of the reasons also that I had such a hard time writing this piece, is just making sure I was hitting on that, having that kind of dichotomy, like I said, because I think, so the reason I decided to do it was because if you have this very upbeat, happy, kind of sing-songy delivery, but what's being said is very much not that, and is very much the opposite. I think it hits your ear in such a way that I think it makes you want to listen again, because it just doesn't line up, and it's very much, I think it's very attention grabbing. I think it's a very easy, so I think it's a very good attention grabbing technique as well, because again, you're kind of hearing these two different things and trying to put them together at the same time. And maybe hopefully even go back and watch the video again, just to figure out how they go together. But I think that's also the beauty of it, is that it doesn't, but it keeps you kind of thinking about it longer, because the pieces don't fit, and it just doesn't feel right. But I think that's part of the actual impact of that, of this piece, Il Dottore. So that's pretty much all I have to say about Il Dottore. So this next piece is actually a piece that I did a few weeks ago, entitled 99 Problems. So so the reason I wanted to do it tonight was just to kind of show you, if you've caught that, so if you listen to that broadcast where I did 99, the first time that I did 99 problems, so I made mention in that broadcast that I kind of had like a hat tip and nod to both Rain's Rain and Il Dottore. So now that you've heard both of those pieces, I thought it'd be kind of interesting to go back and redo 99 problems, and in the hopes that you can just get like a better so those kind of hat tips would make a little bit more sense, and you kind of see how I was able to fit them in a little bit better. But before I get to that, I have a couple more quotes for you guys, and these both come from hip hop artists and I guess pop punk artist, Machine Gun Kelly. So the first one is a direct quote, and the second one is actually song lyrics of his. So the first quote I have is an actual quote. So the quote says, and I quote, "I feel social media sometimes gives the wrong people too big of a voice," end quote. So again, that was a direct quote. And this next quote that I have is actually song lyrics from his hip hop song, "All We Have." And if you give me a second. Yes. So the reason I'm looking. So this next quote comes from, like I said, Machine Gun Kelly. But these are song lyrics taken from his song "All We Have" featuring Anna Yvette, and that's why I was starting, because I wanted to make sure I got the featured artist as well. These are quotes. So this is actually song lyrics, like I said, from Machine Gun Kelly, and I quote, "Question: What if tomorrow never comes and everything you said today couldn't be undone?" Okay, end quote. So with that said, this is this is my piece entitled 99 Problems, and it goes like this. "I got 99 problems, and this phone is every single one. I'm f***ing done. But how can I be done when this virtual reality is my only identity? I'm so addicted to this. I'm so addicted to being online that if I get sober, I'm scared it'll all be over. I'm living in this circle like Emma Watson and going under like Evanescence. Screw this. Screw this goddamn social media presence. They say money is the root of all evil, but I beg to differ. This handheld computer is the slave driver, and I'm the commuter. I wish I had never picked those flowers that wield bubonic powers, because ever since I chose to smell that rose, I felt these walls close. Used to pride myself on being my own master, but now I'm out in pasture where the rains rain, dreaming of being free while screaming for someone to finally save me. I'm not lying when I say it's life and death. I swear this shit is just as bad as meth. I'm sorry. I'm down. I'm sorry. But I'm down to my last breath. I can no longer breathe. So pretty please. I got 99 problems and this phone is every single one. I'm done. But remember me by my memes. So that was my piece entitled 99 Problems. I'm just gonna kind of go quickly over so I'm just gonna talk briefly about this one. So like I said, this piece was inspired by just the first 4 lines. Those being, I got 99 problems and this phone is every single one. I'm done. Just popping into my head one day out of nowhere. I think I was just jamming to music. I was jamming to metal music, so it wasn't even like Jay-Z or anything like that. And just those 4 lines just came screaming in my head. And if I remember correctly, I just wrote them down on like a whiteboard or something, and I just kind of went back to jamming out. And it was about 45 minutes, an hour later, those same 4 lines came like screaming in my head again, which is never ever happens to me. So that second time, like I said, that second time I knew I had to do something with those lines. Obviously 99 problems was a result. So I wanted to include it. So like I said, I wanted to include it tonight, just to show the references from Rain and Il Dottore, and how those kind of worked and played into it, and in hopes that it would hopefully give make them make more sense kind of thing. It's just kind of something cool I thought about, and I wanted to not do a half-hour episode tonight. So with that said, I'm just looking ahead at what we have coming up on Cosmos Astrum Radio for you guys. Right here tonight, we have in about 35 minutes or so, right at 9 o'clock, we have the Boreal Ghost Show. Always a great mix of music that you're not going to find anywhere else, and also stories to go along with that music a lot of the time, which is really, really interesting. So like I said, that's the Boreal Ghost Show coming up in about 25 minutes, right here on Cosmos Astrum Radio, beginning at 9 o'clock. Following that, on Friday, we have the Thunder Cave Show with Joe, going from 10 to 11 p.m. Great mix of music. Love the mix of music. You might get metal, you might get rap, you might get country. That's gonna be a one broadcast. You might even might even be able to win some stuff. So tune in, because I'm not sure about that. But tune in anyways, like I said. Just tune in anyways to the Thunder Cave Show with Joe. Like I said, that's Friday, beginning at 10 p.m. Saskatchewan time, going to about 11. Joe is in. The Thunder Cave Show is. The Thunder Cave Show is really interesting. He plays actual cassettes on the air, actual vinyl CDs, vinyl CDs on air. Really, really interesting. So that's Friday, and then Saturday morning we have Low Keys Labs. If you can stay up for it, I highly encourage it. Hilarious hour and a half of music. Like I said, beginning at 1 o'clock a.m. Saskatchewan time. But with that said, next Thursday, right here inside the Wolf's Den on Cosmos Astrum Radio, again beginning at 8 o'clock Saskatchewan time. So next week's theme is gonna be Lone Wolf Poetics. So so next week's broadcast is gonna look about kind of how I approach writing and what writing means to me, and kind of talk about this alter ego, this character of Lone Wolf Poetics that I've kind of made for myself. So definitely check that out. Like I said, that's going to be next Thursday right here inside the Wolf's Cave, on Cosmos Astrum Radio. But I still have a fair amount of time here, so you guys want a sneak peek at Saturday's new video. This is a heavy one, but one that needs to be done. So like I said, the video for this is going to come out on Saturday, not my usual Friday, and I'll get into that after. But with that said, this is my brand new piece, just a couple days old, entitled Through a Child's Eyes, and it goes like this. Through a child's eyes, light fades to blackness, lost and lifeless, 6 feet deep, screaming with barely a peep. Through a forgotten child's eyes, high stories kept and lost, by moon and sun, the quiet of nature's calming tones, vibrations and pulses, follow their voices. Through a child's eyes, light fades to blackness, lost and lifeless, 6 feet deep, screaming with barely a peep. Through a forgotten child's eyes. Through a forgotten child's eyes. uncovering atrocities, a process of time, long elapsed yet relapsing through the night. The silence, dark lit light, feel their suffered plight. Through a child's eyes, light fades to blackness, lost and lifeless, 6 feet deep, screaming with barely a peep. Through a forgotten child's eyes. High stories, through a forgotten child's eyes. High stories carved upon stone, recorded on painful tape. A theory just, but one proven many times more than lust. Shame unto those violating trust. Through a child's eyes, light fades to blackness. Lost and lifeless, 6 feet deep, screaming with barely a peep. Through a forgotten child's eyes. With broken heart, eyes teared, listen close to those voices shaken and weak, screaming to speak. See the utter horror. Through a child's eyes, light fades to blackness, lost and lifeless, 6 feet deep, screaming with barely a peep. Through a forgotten child's eyes. Okay, so that was my piece entitled Through a Child's Eyes. So I wrote this piece, like I said, just a few days ago. And so just a few days ago, in honor of the 1 year anniversary of the Kamloops 215. So if you're not familiar with that, so the May 23rd was the 1 year anniversary of the discovery of 215 children in Kamloops, British Columbia, at the site of a former Indian residential school. And it kind of kicked off what has now become over. That kicked off what has now become over. Those were the first 215. That number has since grown to 7,000, actually closer to 8,000 children in Canada and parts of the United States. So I myself am Indigenous. I am third generation removed from the Indian residential genocide school system. So it's obviously something that's very, very heartbreaking to me, very close to me. And something that, like I said, I've seen the after effects of my family. So the reason I'm putting this video out on Friday, or not putting this video out on Friday, is because I actually just couldn't write anything. It took me a little longer than I was anticipating that I wanted to take to actually write Through a Child's Eyes. To commemorate the original 215, the Kamloops 215. So I was about a day or two later than what I would have liked, so that's why I'm putting the video on Saturday. It's still gonna come out at 12 o'clock noon, Saskatchewan time, but like I said, on Saturday. With that said, there's one more quote I wanted to share with you guys. Where did it go? So I can't actually find it right now. So with that said, because I can't find that last quote, because I can't find that last quote. Okay, here it is. So I don't know who actually said this quote. I found it on. So I actually found this on Facebook. So I don't actually know who said the quote, unfortunately. But with that said, the quote is. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. Philosophy is wondering if a Bloody Mary counts as smoothies. It counts as a smoothie. So with that said, remember there's no right time to actually start writing, so just write right now. Good night.